I'd like to show you how to neutralize the bad effects from caffeine. There are some negative things. I'm going to show you what to do to get rid of those negative things.
Coffee is the one thing most of us simply can't give up, right? But here's a wild idea. What if giving up the usual bean could benefit your health? Yeah, that does sound impossible, especially if one is that kind of individual who can't even start to function before having a minimum of that 1 cup. But let me tell you something. Giving it up might change more than you think. It is one of those very things we all count on to kickstart our day. Yet quite apart from the caffeine high, you seldom stop and wonder what this stuff does inside your body. The morning drink of coffee sends it instantly into the circulatory system and onto the brain.
In humans, it's involved in a very specific neurotransmitter called adenosine. Now, adenosine has many different functions in the body. One of the ones that relate to caffeine is that it's involved in the promotion of your sleep cycles. So it helps you go to sleep at night. So let's pretend this is adenosine, the neurotransmitter, and this is the receptor to activate it, okay, in the cells. So it goes in there, and then it opens up this, which basically activates your ability to start feeling tired and sleepy. So that's what adenosine does. But what caffeine does is it comes in there and it goes into the receptor for adenosine like that, preventing adenosine to go into that receptor. So now we block this sleep molecule, so you become more awake.
Caffeine is sneaky in its appearance. It looks much like adenosine on a molecular level. It consumes those pathways, competes with adenosine, and blocks the receptors of the brain from it. The result? You feel more alert and awake because your brain isn't getting the signal that it's time to chill out. That's why, after a cup of coffee, you can suddenly feel ready to take on the day. Even when just minutes before you were dragging, caffeine doesn't always work in a universally positive direction. It powers up your alertness, perhaps even gives a boost to your mood and reaction time, making you sharp and focused. Caffeine, however, is a really insidious contributing factor to anxiety. You might not even connect the dots, but it seriously amps up your nervous system. By blocking those adenosine receptors we talked about, caffeine does more than just keep you awake. It sparks the release of adrenaline. It's the same hormone that your body secretes when you're in states of peril. Think of it as putting your body into high alert, even when the real danger is not around. If you are more prone to anxiety, caffeine makes those feelings worse. In an instant, that jittery feeling isn't about feeling alert, but just that your body reacting as if you're in this constant state of stress. Yet another huge factor related to stress is the way caffeine tends to influence your adrenal glands.
Hot's a very, very strong coffee. It kind of burnt out my adrenals. But caffeine is the most widely consumed mind-altering drug.
These are those tiny glands sitting on top of your kidneys and are responsible for churning out adrenaline and cortisol-type hormones. Each time you flood the system with caffeine, you are hyperstimulating the glands and putting them to work overtime. This may serve only to make you feel more energetic in the short run, but will surely be counterproductive as your adrenals become exhausted from being pushed to the limit all of the time.
And then the third thing that caffeine does is it increases noradrenaline. That is the neurotransmitter that is triggered when you're awake. And so serotonin and melatonin helps you with sleep, but noradrenaline keeps you awake, and caffeine stimulates noradrenaline.
The result is chronic fatigue. You end up even more exhausted than before that cup of coffee. And here is one you may not have known. Coffee, especially the commercial type, can be replete with molds. These molds produce mycotoxins that simply do not agree with your liver.
And the other thing that people don't realize about coffee is that there's a very high level of molds. There's 2 specific molds that grow in coffee. And that mold can create allergies, it can create irritation to the liver, especially for those people that are sensitive. And this mold is more of a problem in decaf, okay? Why? Because the chemical caffeine in plants normally inhibits mold growth, which is interesting. So the more the coffee is processed, like in instant coffee, for example, you have higher levels of mold. And this creates mold toxins called mycotoxins, and these can affect the liver for those people that are sensitive. especially if you're getting a lot of this mold.
In some sensitive individuals, such mycotoxins may also cause symptoms similar to an allergy or other negative implications for liver health. The mold problem primarily occurs with instant and decaf coffee because the caffeine in regular coffee works naturally to somewhat help prevent mold infestation. So if you reach for that quick instant coffee, be sure you will be sipping into an added load to your liver. Quitting drinking coffee can indeed be one hard thing to do because most likely your body depends on it to get through the day. But let me tell you, quitting caffeine can be one of the best things you ever do to your health, more so in lowering your blood pressure. Caffeine is also notorious for spiking one's blood pressure, especially among people who have normal blood pressure in the first place. In other words, it goes into overdrive every time you have a cup, which can be pretty much a risk in the long run. In abstaining from the coffee, you're giving your heart and blood vessels a little break. That allows the blood pressure to somehow regularize itself. But that's not all. One of the most immediate benefits, which you more than likely are going to feel when quitting coffee, is the improvement in sleep. Without that late afternoon or evening caffeine fix, you will be able to wind down at night a whole lot easier. And with the better sleep that you get, you would be fresher in the morning and feel less of a need to use caffeine as a pick-me-up. Just think how great it would be to wake up in the morning and actually feel rested and ready to go, rather than just reach for the coffee pot, because that is what you do. Another big change you might experience is a decrease in your anxiety. The caffeine can have one's nervous system all haywire, leaving one restless and uncomfortable. As you give up coffee, that incessant buzzing and jitters tend to wear off, and your brain levels out, concentrating better. There is something likened to a held breath finally exhaled. The world seems so much more in hand. Let's not forget about your teeth. Coffee is infamous for staining teeth, and those dark brown rings in your favorite mug are a pretty good indicator of what it's doing to your smile. That could translate to giving up coffee and having whiter, healthier looking teeth without having to spend money on those expensive whitening treatments. Before we move on, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. Is all that still in need of a little convincing to give up coffee? Consider this. What if you tried to get rid of the coffee for 30 days? Possibly, you might start to notice some subtle but very real changes. You could actually imagine yourself getting up in the morning, not having that nagging feeling that you need something just to get going, and working on things without jittery, nervous, or anxious feelings. Or your afternoons might not be so sluggish as you are no longer crashing from the caffeine high in the morning hours. And secondly, towards the end of the month, one might reach such a stage when he can well realize that he actually does not need coffee as much as he thought he did. The body, after all, does a good job of readjusting to life without leaning on a stimulant. Quitting cold turkey from coffee isn't easy, considering it has been in your daily routine for so long. The good thing is, you don't have to. Yes, there's a way to taper off from caffeine gradually without experiencing those awful withdrawal symptoms, headaches, fatigue, irritability. So here's how you do it. First things first, scale back the intake of coffee. If you're used to having 2 or 3 cups a day, try cutting back to just 1. When you are used to that, consider replacing your regular coffee with matcha tea.
In humans, it's involved in a very specific neurotransmitter called adenosine. Now, adenosine has many different functions in the body. One of the ones that relate to caffeine is that it's involved in the promotion of your sleep cycles. So it helps you go to sleep at night. So let's pretend this is adenosine, the neurotransmitter, and this is the receptor to activate it, okay, in the cells. So it goes in there, and then it opens up this, which basically activates your ability to start feeling tired and sleepy. So that's what adenosine does. But what caffeine does is it comes in there and it goes into the receptor for adenosine like that, preventing adenosine to go into that receptor. So now we block this sleep molecule, so you become more awake.
Matcha is a great alternative because it still gives you a little bit of caffeine, but in a much gentler way, about half the amount that's in a cup of coffee. Plus, it has the added plus of being super antioxidant rich, so you're doing your body good while weaning off the caffeine.
And the other thing that people don't realize about coffee is that there's a very high level of molds. There's two specific molds that grow in coffee. And that mold can create allergies. It can create irritation to the liver, especially for those people that are sensitive. And this mold is more of a problem in decaf. Okay, why? Because the chemical caffeine in plants normally inhibits mold growth, which is interesting. So the more the coffee is processed, like in instant coffee, for example, you have higher levels of mold. And this creates mold toxins called mycotoxins. And these can affect the liver for those people that are sensitive, especially if you're getting a lot of this.
Once accustomed to matcha, one can taper off to herbal teas, which have even lower caffeine. Teas are a good next step. Green or white tea. These still offer a little kick, but are much softer on your system. You might eventually settle into absolutely caffeine-free herbal teas, such as chamomile or peppermint, which are calming and would relax you. Smoothing the transition further, you may wish to try some coffee alternatives, such as herbal coffee blends. These are preparations of roasted chicory root or dandelion, among other things, and while they contain absolutely no caffeine, they would also be similarly rich and warm. You could add into your life adaptogens like ashwagandha that may help your body cope with stress more effectively and reduce that caffeine crutch. You might just be amazed at the number of positive changes your body goes through once you decide to give up on coffee. The largest benefit awaiting you perhaps might be that your blood pressure can come down. Without the constant influx of caffeine, your heart is not working as hard, and the vessels can relax. This would balance out the regulation of the blood pressure, and therefore should go easy on the heart. Another great advantage of abandoning caffeine is that you sleep better. Without that coffee at lunchtime, or at any other time churning inside your system, you'll find that you get more settled at nighttime. With good sleep comes good mood. You'd wake up feeling well rested, not simply jacked up with caffeine. And your adrenal glands, charged with handling all that stress, will thank you. No longer being driven into overdrive by caffeine, they can do what they're meant to be doing. The body can respond more normally to the stresses it faces. This means you feel much calmer, with less jitteriness throughout the day. If you want to cut down on caffeine, one of the best places to start is by sorting out your sleep. Wearing these blue light-blocking glasses a couple of hours before going to bed allows your body to gradually wind down and find its sleep much easier once you finally hit the pillow. Number 1 is going to be an improvement in sleep quality to reduce dependency on caffeine. Obviously, you are fresher and full of energy after a good night's rest. Therefore, you are less likely to reach for that coffee first thing in the morning. Alternatively, try setting up a routine of retiring to bed at times when you are assured of deep, restful sleep. This may be in the form of turning off the lights an hour before sleep time, soothing music, or even light stretches, or some forms of meditation to help relax the mind and body. So, what do you think? Comment below.